May 7th, 2020. From El Cajon in San Diego, California, this is episode 208 of You Can Bet on That. Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. My name is Mark Duvall, and sitting comfortably in his home is Dr. Mike.
Hello.
How you doing, Mike?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Not too bad. Still just under quarantine, trying to keep busy.
Yep, same here. Still doing a ton of yard work.
Good.
Which is actually good. I'm getting a lot of things done that I never got to before.
Right.
So I guess in a way, if I want to look for a positive, that's a good thing.
Yeah, really. It's true. We've gotten a lot of yard work done and just, silly, stupid things around the house that were kind of, always at the bottom of the list, right? Things that we were never going to get to because they really weren't that important. They'd kind of be nice.
Yeah, right. That's the same with us. We've done a few things that, like organizing the closet, right? It's
right,
like low on the list, but we did it. We've done it. I'll tell you what, though, Mark, the last week in particular, I have really began to miss the casinos.
It's interesting because you and I really have not been gambling. The poker tournaments that we've been playing online, that's been about it.
Yeah. And that's like, a couple hours on a Sunday morning.
Yeah. So, no, we haven't been, betting on weird sports or things like that. So, we've really been shut down.
Yeah. And up until this last week, I was okay. I was like, it's all right. It's not really bugging me that much. But the last week, I don't know why, I've thought about it more. I thought, God, it sure would be nice to go out to the casino.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, me too.
It's kind of a stress relief for me.
Oh, me too, yeah.
So, we get out there and I'm only thinking about craps. I'm not thinking about the gazillion other things that I've got to think about.
Right.
So, I kind of starting to miss it. I hope it opens soon. But I got a feeling casinos are going to be gone for a while.
Yes, and the current plan right now, I think on the last episode I said maybe 4 people on each side of the craps table. The current plan is really 3 people on each side of the craps table, so 6 players altogether. And I'm thinking, well, a place like Harrah's, Southern California, they will probably still keep their craps tables open because they've got a lot of craps players there. And, the minimums are probably going to be higher, but they have a lot of players that are willing to play at those minimums. At least in the San Diego area, I don't know if craps is going to survive at some of these other casinos that only have 1 or 2 tables because of this.
No, and what about Vegas?
Yeah, well,
think about a Vegas casino, some of the, say, smaller ones that have maybe 2 craps tables.
Yeah.
Is it worth it for them to open it up?
Right, that's the thing, because, well, maybe they open half a table, and they just have 2 dealers, something like that. I don't know. We'll see. It's all speculation. It's fun to speculate, but we're not going to know until it happens.
And it won't be as much fun. 3 people on a side. Yeah. You and I will like it because the game will go faster.
That's right. We'll have plenty of room to spread out. Yep.
Right. I was thinking if they had 3 people on a craps table on a side, so 6 people on a table. Now, let's say Harrah's, Southern California had 2 tables open. Or on let's say a Tuesday night where there's usually only 1 table open.
Yeah.
You've got 6 people. Well, what if you've got a guy playing, $10 on the line, say it's a $10 minimum table, and then, I walk up. Was the casino going to say to the guy, we'd rather have him play because, he's going to bet, $50 on the line instead of your 10?
Hopefully they would not do that, Dr. Mike. Hopefully they would not.
Yeah, hopefully they would not, but they'd probably be sitting there thinking, great, this guy's all he's doing is betting $10 on the line, and we could have this other guy betting, $1,000,
yeah,
right?
No, it's true.
It's a weird thing. I just don't know how they're going to get around that unless they make the limit so high, that it's like a $50 table.
And I have a feeling that is what's going to happen. We talked about the possibilities of there being higher minimums, lower minimums, probably higher minimums when it comes to table games.
Right, because let's say on a Tuesday night, like I said, there's 4 craps tables there. But if they only open 1 and you can only have 6 players, you're limiting who can play. Mm-hmm. If you open all 4 tables, then you've got a lot of dealers you've got to pay.
That's the thing, right.
And you've got to have them full. I mean, it's just a weird situation. And, blackjack, too, might be the same, right?
Sure.
I mean, if you only can put 2 or 3 people on a blackjack table instead of, say, 6, is it going to be worth it to open that table?
Yeah, right. That's why people are saying, okay, it's going to be higher minimums.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I just pray every day that the world would just go back to the way it was.
Of course. It's going to be different no matter what happens.
Go to a crowded craps table and, you can shake your friend's hand and, just go to a movie with a crowd in there. So when you see the next installment of, Star Wars, it's exciting and not boring.
Yeah. And you probably get sick, but not with COVID-19. Maybe it's a cold.
Right. Right. Oh, it's crazy.
All right. Well, talking about poker and these poker tournaments we've been doing, a couple of weeks ago, we were playing in Adam's poker tournament, and I was the first one out. I was eliminated first. And as I was going through the hands in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I don't think I really played that badly. It's just I wasn't getting cards. And, I'd bet pre-flop and too many people would call. And then I'd bet the flop even though I missed it. And I'd get callers. And anyway, I went out. But as long as you can kind of think, all right, well, at least I didn't make any major mistakes, I guess I'm happy with going out first. How did that work out for you in that particular tournament, Mike?
Well, I finished in the money. I want to state.
Okay, yes,
front.
You did. That's true. Let's make that clear.
I finished in the money, so I'm happy I finished in the money. Now, honestly, I probably should have won that tournament because it was a pretty big hand, me and another player. So on the river, I made a king high flush.
Right. So the only thing you could lose to after the river would have been the ace high flush.
Right, which I was a little worried about. But the way the betting had been going, I didn't think the other player had that.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe I checked, and then he made a bet. And
at that point, you actually typed in the chat box, this is going to cripple me, but I think I have to do it. So we were all expecting you to call.
Right, because I thought, well, he may have the ace and just been hesitant. But I thought, I've got to call, right?
Right.
And if I get all those chips in that pot, I'm the chip leader. And I'm in pretty good spot.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty easy call, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to hit call and for some reason clicked on fold.
No, we all saw you fold your hand and we're like, what? What'd you do? And you're like, oh my gosh.
I lamented that all day. All day. The whole rest of the day, I kept telling my family, I should have won that tournament. What the hell? Well, it put me in a little bit of a bind, actually. But I was able to end up in the money.
Yeah, you hung in there.
I was happy about that. But I was not happy about screwing up. And I don't know if I was tired or, I'm sitting at the kitchen and I'm at the desk on the computer and I'm kind of halfway paying attention.
Yeah, it's easy to do if you just, I'm going to click. You're not really, what you want to do, but you're not really looking at the buttons. Yeah, well, you won't make that mistake again.
No, that'll never happen again. And I told my wife afterwards, I was so mad at myself. I said, that is never going to happen again because I am going to check every time I hit that button. I'm going to make sure the cursor's in the right spot before I play.
Yep, the old misclick on online poker. We've all done it.
So I should say I won, and then I finished in the money. And then this week, you went out before me. I didn't finish in the money, but you still went out before me.
Yeah, that's true. So the week where you made that mistake, Melanie actually went on to win the tournament. And then this last week, you and I both were out before the money. And cousin Vito, actually won the tournament.
And it was funny because Vito was not on the phone call, the chatting.
Oh, that's right. We had a Google Hangout going at the time, and he'd been on the week before, but for whatever reason wasn't on that week. Yeah.
And as with any group of people who are all your friends and that you all like, when somebody's not in on the talk, they get pounded.
Oh yeah, Vito, we were all rooting against you. I'm just telling you right now, we were all rooting against you.
It's so funny with groups of friends. You can have 10 people. If one person's not there, the other 9 just rag on
Yep.
the whole time. And that's what it was. It was just ragging on Vito.
I know.
He ends up winning the whole thing.
I know. We're all going, oh, no. We've actually gotten a few requests from listeners asking about how they can play poker online with friends, like a home game. And let's talk about what PokerStars offers. PokerStars has this feature called Home Game, where you can specifically invite certain people to play in a game. So you can set up a tournament. The tournament announcement will only go out to the players that you have determined to be in your home game group. And then you can all get together and play a tournament. And if you want to play for real money, what you can do is have somebody be in charge of all the cash. Everybody Venmos that person the entry fee. And then at the end of the tournament, that person distributes all the winnings to the winning players. Now, the game actually on PokerStars is just for play money. So you're technically playing a play money game online. And the great thing about play money is you can play that in any state. You know, you don't have to have real online poker legal in your state. Any state you can play these play money games. And then whoever is running the game can determine, all right, out of however many players are in this tournament, the top number of spots gets paid. PokerStars has a built-in thing where the top certain number of people win play money chips back, but you can determine your own payout schedule. And again, this person would just, distribute the money after the win. In order to play the tournaments on PokerStars, you have to use play money that you get when you first sign up, and you also get every 4 hours. Every 4 hours, you can request more free chips. There's a free chips button, free play money chips button up at the top. Every 4 hours, you get 15,000 chips. And typically, the minimum amount of chips to enter a tournament is 20,000. So as long as you just keep enough play money chips in your account, you're fine for entering these tournaments. A lot of people are doing this, and it's a fun way to go. It really is only good for tournaments, however, because if you try to play a cash game, PokerStars actually takes a rake. Even if it's a play money game, they're taking a rake. So if you were doing a cash game with your friends, at the end, the chip stacks wouldn't match up with how much money you contributed. And another problem with cash games, too, is that at any time, a player could add more play money chips to their stack. And they don't have to get permission. You might not even know that it happens. And I'm not saying you've got friends that are going to cheat in that way, but it is a possibility. So really, this is only good for tournaments. But it is a way to play. If you've got a home game you haven't been able to play because of the shutdown, it's a great way to go.
Now, what kind of games can you play, though?
Virtually any game that PokerStars offers. So obviously, Texas Hold'em, Omaha, Deuce to 7. You can even play stud in a limit fashion. So yeah, any of the games that they offer, you can play in a tournament.
So you couldn't have, though, a game where I couldn't call AC Deucey or
no,
that's one of the games that we've made up in our home.
No, it's not that.
Right, they just don't have the software to support.
Yeah, right. You couldn't, say, okay, let's play Deuces Wild, and whoever has the Queen of Spades down gets half the pot. No, you can't, program it to play those games. So it has to be typically games that you'd see in a real casino.
Okay, but still, that's quite a few different games.
Oh, so yeah, for sure.
You can get extra chips too. Let's say you haven't played 4 hours and you want to play another tournament with another group of friends or something. You can get extra chips relatively cheap.
Yeah, but I would recommend trying to avoid that, actually paying money for play money chips if you don't have enough.
Yeah.
When you first sign up, get as many play money chips as you can by clicking free chips. And then you don't have to have the window open for 4 hours. You can close everything down and come back 4 hours later and get more chips. So, just do that.
Really?
Yeah. Just do that a couple times a day or whatever, and, you'll bankroll a bunch of play chips, yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I can just have PokerStars on my computer and not be playing and still get chips
every 4 hours? You don't even have to have the app open. Yeah, you can just open up the app. Yeah, if you were to open up the app right now, Mike, you'd see that, you could get free chips right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to start doing that then.
There you go.
I've been getting a few extra chips, and it's only like $2 for 20,000.
Oh, Mike, you've been paying for them?
Yeah, just a couple bucks.
Oh my gosh, I should edit this out of the show. For shame.
I didn't know it. I mean, what's $2? $1.99.
All right. Well, from now on, when you're thinking about it, just log in and get 15,000 free chips and then do it again 4 hours later.
I'll just do that every morning.
Yes, okay. Good. All right, so some updates on Caesars rewards. They came out recently in following in MLife's footsteps and basically said that any tier status that you currently have will continue until January 31st, 2022. So if you're diamond right now, you're guaranteed to be diamond through January 31st, 2022. So that's good news. They've also adjusted how many tier credits you need to reach certain tier levels. And basically, they've reduced the number of required tier credits by 20%, at least for platinum and diamond and the different diamond levels. 7 stars, they've decreased it by a little over 16%. I think that's good. A couple things, though. Well, okay, that'll be good if the closures only happen for 20% of the current year. You know, if it turns out that these closures take up 6 months, well, then now you've got to actually earn a lot more tier credits to try to get to the next tier level. But again, having said that...
Unless they adjust it again.
And they may adjust that again. But having said that, again, that's only if you're trying to get to the next tier level up from where you currently are. Because again, if you're diamond right now, you're diamond through January 2022. But let's say you're diamond and you want to jump up to 7 stars. For this year, you earn the credits for this year, 2020, that will give you the status for 2021. If you want to hit 7 stars, you need to hit 125,000 tier credits instead of 150,000. So again, these numbers where I say you only need to earn 80% of what you've previously had to earn, it really only matters if you're trying to get to the next tier level. And again, they've also reiterated that reward credits will not expire until September 1st, 2020 at the earliest. And I would imagine they're going to extend that too as we go along.
Yeah, I think most places are being pretty fair about this.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to be at least. And again, you know, it's just, you can't really complain because the reason they have these tier levels is to try to coax people to play more, or, you know, they want to reward VIP players. And it's going to be tough for them this year too, because, you know, they're not making money either. Hey, thanks to everyone who's been clicking through our Amazon link. Remember, whenever you're going to buy something through Amazon, please go to our page first, youcanbetonthat.com, and click through our Amazon link towards the top of the page. All right, let's move on to some voicemails. First up is Will, and we're going to pause his call several times to kind of answer questions as we go along.
Hey, Mark and Dr. Mike. This is Will from North Carolina. I haven't called you guys in about a year or so because I've kind of noticed you guys have had a whole bunch of people calling in and a lot of new callers. And since I've called into you guys a whole lot in the past, I kind of want to give other people a chance to call in and get their calls in. But lately, you guys, I noticed, haven't had nearly as many calls coming in because of everything going on. So I figured this would be kind of a good time for me to kind of unload some of the questions I've been sitting on for a while. So my first one deals with 3-card poker. I noticed one time I was playing 3-card poker, I saw somebody playing blind. And what I mean by that is they would make their ante bet, and then without even looking at their cards, they would automatically make the raise bet without even looking at it. And they would just wait for the dealer to flip over both the dealer's cards and their cards to see if they won or not. And it blew me away at the time. I was like, it just struck me as completely crazy because mathematically it's just horrible for you. And I didn't say anything to the person, but I was just sitting there just shocked that they were doing that. And I guess they just liked the excitement of just finding out what their cards were all at the end and just taking that risk. So I just wanted to ask, have you guys ever seen that? And what was your impression of it if you ever did?
Yeah, we see this quite a bit, don't you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think you see it quite a bit. And I think most people do it just because they like the excitement of did I win or lose, right?
Right. And I was thinking, too, it could be side bet regret. Like maybe they used to play the perfect basic strategy, but then if they had called instead of folded, they would have made a side bet win. Like, you know, that 6-card bet where you use your cards and the dealer's cards to make a hand.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, exactly. That's why you got to stay in every time because you could always win that side bet. But yeah, I think you're right. A lot of it is just the excitement of, you know, I don't care. I'm here to gamble.
Right. They figure I'm going to stay in no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's just more exciting if they flip over my cards at the end and I see if I won or lost.
Right. They like that reveal. Yep.
So my second question deals with 6-to-5 blackjack. So we know that 6-to-5 blackjack, it's completely taken over the Vegas Strip. It's even started taking over a lot of other casinos as well. And we obviously know that the reason why is because people will play it. And so the casinos are obviously going to offer it. I was wondering what you guys thought about why do you think people play 6-to-5 blackjack? Do you think it's because they don't know how bad it is or that they just don't care how bad it is? And obviously I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. You know, I think most people probably know this a little bit worse, but, you know, either don't care how bad it is or don't know exactly how bad it is. But what do you guys think? Do you think it's more so that people they really don't know just how much worse it is? Or if they know and they just don't really care? Because even for me, like, I know how bad it is, but there are times that I'll actually play it. Like, I think I even sat down and calculated it. I think that if you play a $5 6-to-5 table, I think you actually still lose more. It has a higher house edge than a $15 3-to-2 table, assuming all the other rules are the same. I think that's true. And even though I know that, if I have the choice, a lot of times I'll play that $5 6-to-5 table just because, I don't have as big of a bankroll. I don't want the variance to be really, really high. I don't have to risk a whole lot of money trying to get back in it if things don't go well at a $15 table. So even I kind of fall into the category of not caring sometimes, even though I try to avoid 6-to-5 blackjack. I try to go downtown or off strip somewhere to find a $5 3-to-2 table. But there are sometimes I'm in a bind and I'll still play it. So I was just curious what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, Will, I think you answered your own question. If you're playing it and you actually know, because you're right. If you're playing 6-to-5, $5 table, that might actually have a higher negative EV than a higher limit game where they pay 3-to-2. But maybe you're more interested in controlling your variance. In other words, if you're just playing at the $5 table, your swings are not going to be as big, losing or winning in one direction or the other. Whereas if you're playing at a higher limit game, even though in the long run the house edge might be lower, you may win or lose more money in the short run.
Right. I think I agree with that. And I think that to answer why, I say most people don't even know there's a difference.
I think you're right.
And then people who play blackjack routinely know there's a difference, but they're just looking for lower limits.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so they settle for 6-to-5 because you think about it. You lose 4 straight hands in a row at a $5 table, you lost $20.
Mm-hmm.
You lose 4 hands in a row at a $15 table, you've lost $60. There's quite a bit of difference there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about the origins of 6-to-5 blackjack. When it first started, the gimmick by the casinos was, let's offer a single deck game, because even casual players probably know that single deck games are better than multi-deck games, but we'll only pay 6-to-5 on blackjack. So they were using kind of, some knowledge and some ignorance on the player's part, because players are, single deck, that's the way to go, not realizing that 6-to-5, is hurting them even more. So that's how it started. Really, when you first saw 6-to-5, it was only these single deck tables, and they made a big deal about it. And then when the public kind of got used to that, then they started slipping it into all their other games.
Yeah, it's smart on their part, right?
Yeah.
I would be interested to ask a casino executive who makes decisions on limits and games that they're going to offer and things like that, what percent goes into it? So in other words, what percent is the actual odds? What percent is player beliefs or non-beliefs that, you take into consideration? What percent of it is, say, licensing? How do they make these decisions? I think a lot of it goes into the psychological aspect of the player.
Yeah, or it could simply be, let's take a look at our bottom line. Which tables are making more money?
Right. And they may try it one way and then try it another way and decide which one made more money and go with that one, right?
Yep, sure. Yep.
My third question dealt with craps. I've noticed that at places like Golden Gate and the D downtown, they do offer 10 times odds on their craps tables, but their field bet only pays 2-to-1 on both the 2 and the 12. Whereas it seems like most places on the Strip offer 3, 4, 5 odds, but they offer the better odds on the field bet. They pay 2-to-1 on the 2, but 3-to-1 on the 12. And I always thought that was kind of weird. And the station casinos in Vegas also do it just like the D and Golden Gate. They offer the 10 times odds, but they make the field bet 2-to-1 on the 12. Why would they do that? Like, why would they make their odds bet so generous, but then be so stingy on the field bet? So I actually asked the dealer at the station casino one time. He said that they did it to dissuade field bettors from coming in and playing just a field bet on the tables, because apparently they have a lot of locals people at those casinos, and the locals complained about it so much, and they didn't like it because they thought that the field bettors were coming in, putting bets in late, or just throwing off the vibe of the table. And it seems kind of like a weird explanation because, you think they would just make as much money as they could off the field bettors, but at the same time, maybe they think that catering to the locals will give them a better impression. I don't know. So I can't think of a better explanation. So do you guys have any clue as to why they set their rules up like that?
So according to this station's casino dealer, they changed the field so that it's only 2-to-1 on the 12 because they get so many local players coming in complaining that field bet bettors are messing up the game. So it was their way of getting rid of field bet players. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think the casino wants as many field bet players as they can get, and they don't care if you're from that area or you're from Timbuktu.
Yeah, I think this is just another case of a dealer not wanting to say, I don't know, and actually coming up with a reason. Can we come up with a reason? Well, in standard craps, it's 2-1 on the 2 and on the 12. And luckily, some casinos pay 3-1 on the 12. But anyway, bottom line is the casino can decide. And if they figure they're going to draw more players in by putting 3-1 on the 12, well, they'll go ahead and do it. Again, we don't know.
Right. Yeah, you know how I feel on that. That's my least favorite thing when somebody gives an explanation for something and the answer really is, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not in charge of that.
It drives me crazy. Even in my business, if someone asks me a question and I honestly don't know why, I just say, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I can try and look it up, but I mean, maybe there's no answer to that. I don't know. Why are people afraid to say, I don't know?
Yeah,
giving bad information gets you in trouble.
Yeah, it's an ego thing. And I think we're all guilty of it to a certain extent where, you don't want to look like you don't know. So you just...
Right. Well, it's the stigma of society.
Yep.
If you say you don't know, people think you're dumb or something instead of just ignorant.
Yeah.
Right?
And then finally, my last question dealt with win-loss statements at the end of the year. Now, I know Dr. Mike doesn't probably keep up with everything exactly throughout the year so much, and so he may just wait till the end of the year to use the win-loss statements to help him out. But for Mark, I know that you really keep up with your gambling, pretty extensively throughout the year. So I was just wondering, when you look at those win-loss statements at the end, do you find that they're pretty accurate? Do they line up with how much you're losing based on what you've kept up with throughout the year, or are they off by a pretty good amount? Because I know with slots they do a really good job because it's going to be exact. But with table games, you always wonder how well they're actually keeping up with that.
No, these statements are extremely unreliable if you're talking about table game play. I looked at my Harrah's Southern California statement from last year, and it was off by a multiple of 4. It was not even close to what my results were for the end of the year.
They don't do those very accurately. They don't keep a very accurate count of things.
And it's hard for them, too. I can understand why, right?
Yeah,
you're cashing out, cashing in. Yep.
Right. And people are moving around. Like sometimes I've had dealers ask me, well, how'd you do the other night? And I'm like, I lost. And they said, well, no, when you left here, you had 600 more. I'm like, well, yeah, but then I played, something else.
Yeah, you moved to a different table.
Sometimes I add my free play in at the end of the night, and I actually was a little ahead with free play,
right. Yeah.
where it looks like I lost to them. So it's very difficult for them to keep an accurate count.
And then my last question is, have you guys ever had a winning year? Have you ever gone a whole calendar year and still come out ahead? Because I know how much you guys play, it seems like it'd be pretty unlikely. I know you guys have had winning months and maybe even a winning 6-month period. But I don't know. At the same time, I know that gambling variance can be really high sometimes. And even though I know, especially with Dr. Mike's bets, it might be really, really hard to come out ahead. I was just curious if it's ever happened. Because I know for me, even though I don't play a whole lot, I've never come out ahead. So I was just curious if this would happen to you guys. All right, guys, I always appreciate you guys taking the time to answer these calls. All right, I'll see you guys around. All right, bye.
Mike, have you ever had a for sure winning year?
I would say no.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know for sure because I don't keep track.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty certain that the answer is probably no. Now, I'll go quite a few weeks or months and I'll say, gosh, I've won the last 6 times I've gone. But I bet you if I kept accurate track, I'd say no, I haven't. It would take a huge win.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Now, I'm sure I've had years where I haven't lost too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I've had years where I've lost a lot.
Yeah.
But I can't for sure say that I've had winning years. Now, my dad could tell you.
Right.
Because he's like you. He keeps accurate track. And I know you can tell me exactly.
Yeah.
Because you keep accurate track. If I kept accurate track, Mark, there's a 85% chance that one day they find me stuffed in the oven.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to keep track. Yeah.
No.
I want you to keep going to the casino with me, so I don't want you to keep track.
Exactly. And I think that's best for everybody.
Yeah. Well, as far as my records, for last year, 2019, if you were to include free play, then I did come out ahead. So in other words, I lost overall for gambling, but the free play more than made up for it. Now, in 2017, I actually did have a winning gambling year. And it was really all because of that huge session we had at Planet Hollywood, where from 6 p.m. to midnight, the dice went around the table once. That was a huge win relative to my bankroll. So I actually had a winning year overall. Without that, I wouldn't have.
Now, I assume 2018 and 2016 were losers?
I think 2018 was a small loser. Yeah, I think so. So I've actually been on a pretty good run. 2020 has started out terrible. So in a way, I'm kind of glad we're on a break here, but we'll see.
Now, see, I know what your bankroll is on a regular basis because we talk about it a lot.
Right.
So I'm happy that you keep track because when your bankroll is high, I feel good.
Yeah. When my bankroll is high, you feel good. Uh-huh.
Well, because I know that when we're at the table and I've lost my initial buy-in, I don't have to run up to the cage and get more money. I just borrow from you.
Exactly.
I know you got the bankroll.
Yeah, here you go, Dr. Mike. I knew this was coming.
Me feel good.
I brought some extra cash. I knew it was coming.
Yeah, and then at the end of the night, I can just go to the cage once and pay you back.
All right. Well, thanks for all those questions, Will. All right. Next up is our good buddy, Marty.
Hey, Mark and Dr. Mike. Marty from the ghost town, which is now Reno. Very sad here. Everything boarded up. My Friday night routine has been put to shame. Going on week number 6 now. And boy, it's tough trying to figure out something to do here. Last week on the show, you guys were talking about funny things that happened at the table. About 25 years ago, in fact, it was the 80s, playing at the Rio. And back in the 80s, there was a type of sweater that girls used to wear called a cowl neck sweater. Sweater with a big, floppy kind of neckline around it. And we're at the dice table. Guy next to me throws the dice. It bounces off the table, and it's gone. You know, the stick man died down outside. They looked all over for it, couldn't find it. Finally, the foreman comes over to this young lady at the end of the table and says, "I need you to jump up and down." She's like, "No, I'm not going for that." He goes, No, just please jump up and down a little bit. She's like, "No, I'm not going to jump up and down." He said, "Ma'am," he goes, "I'm sure the dice went in your shirt, and it's got to be in there." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And she rolls her eyes, jumps up and down, boom, red die drops to the floor. Funniest thing I ever heard. The pit boss walks over, picks it up. He goes, "I'm going to frame this dice. I know where it's been." Anyway, love the show, guys. Can't wait till we all get back to casinos. Hopefully it's another couple of weeks here in Nevada. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. I think I've told this story on the show before, but I was playing craps with my wife once. We were at one end of the table, and my wife was looking down at a woman on the other end of the table who had kind of a low-cut top. And my wife was thinking to herself, I wonder if the dice ever go off the table and fall into a top like that. And as soon as she thought that, the dice, which were coming our way, one of them went down my wife's top. And she couldn't believe it. So, yeah, that happens.
Yeah, I listening to Marty and I'm thinking to myself, the next time the dice go off the table and, it takes a few seconds to find them, if there's any girl on the other side, where the dice went off, I'm just going to ask her to jump up and down.
Yeah.
Just in case they went in her top or something.
That's a good idea.
Even though I'm sure they didn't.
Mike, I actually see the die on the floor. Nah, have her jump up and down.
Yeah, well, if nothing comes out, I'm saying, well, I was just checking. I just wanted to be certain.
So, ladies, watch for that if you're on a table with Dr. Mike. Yeah, Marty says his Friday routine's been put to shame. Us too. Friday was our night, and that was such a big part of our week.
It was something to look forward to. How, like now we're looking forward to Sunday playing poker. Yeah. We, it'd come to Thursday. Remember how many times on Wednesday night would I say to you, Mark, we just have to get through Thursday.
That's right. And then Friday, even though we have to go to work at least later on in the day, we're going to be heading up.
Right, exactly. We're still like, got to get through this damn Thursdays. These Thursdays are terrible. My wife's brother and his wife, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they have a second home just outside of Reno.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
And they usually go home mid-March, end of March, when the weather starts to warm up a little bit in Minnesota. And they're still there in Reno because they drove, because they have a dog, and going back, without restaurants being open and a lot of motels are closed down and stuff, they figured, well, we don't want to like drive straight through or anything. And they like to drive a little and stop.
Right.
So they just stayed in Reno and they're just waiting to get back home. And they're bored to death because the golf courses were closed and he golfs. The casinos are closed and they both go to the casinos. Yeah. There's nothing to do for them there. So.
Yeah, hopefully not too much longer. All right, next call.
Hey, Mark and Dr. Mike. How you guys doing? Love your show. This is Walter from Boston. I know that, now we're with this the whole quarantine and we're all kind of dying to play and there's really not any playing going on. So, if you could maybe go over a couple of different strategies maybe, and I just like hearing craps, So, there was a strategy came out. It's called I don't know what they call it, the 75 don't come. It's kind of fun. You put, a $5 yo to kind of hedge your bet. I've done it a bunch of times, and I don't know, there's just something about me betting against a certain number, the 4 and 10, I'm usually laying on that, but I'm just kind of wondering on your take on that. Love your show, and thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, let's talk about the strategy that Walter's talking about. So the idea is that you start by putting a $10 pass line bet down. Then once a point is established, you bet $75 on the don't come. And then on that roll, once the don't come goes up to a number, you take odds on the pass line and you place all the numbers that you don't already have action on for $10 or $12, right? $12 on the 6 and 8, 10 on the rest of them. And then you make continuous $10 come bets. And the $5.11 hedge bet that he's talking about is when you make the $75 don't come bet. You hedge it with a $5.11 bet.
So let me see if I get this right. You would have one number that you have a don't number.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you go up on that number, then you'd have every other number covered.
Right.
And when you're making come bets, if your don't come loses, then you've got all come bets.
Right. Although I guess in some cases in this scenario, if your don't come loses, you'd make another don't come bet. But the bottom line is, the worst thing obviously the worst thing that can happen is you establish a point right away and then you immediately 7 out, because then your pass line bet loses, your don't come loses, et cetera. But as you're going through this whole thing, you're hoping that your don't come bet goes up to one of the better numbers for don't come, like 4 or 10, and you're hoping it doesn't repeat. So, that's basically the idea.
That before you 7 out, that you make, say, the 5 and 9 and the 8 or something.
Right. And if you do 7 out, that don't come bet is big enough that it sort of covers the rest of the bets that you have out there.
Yeah.
So what do we think of it?
Yeah.
Anytime anybody asks us what we think of a system, it's like, well, if you enjoy playing that, go ahead. And if you're making some money, then great. Like any system, there are going to be certain rolls of the dice that are going to be great for you and certain ones that are going to be terrible for you. And in this case, again, if you kind of think you're being smart by doing this, have at it. I don't think that I would necessarily play it just because I wouldn't want to have so much don't money on one number with everything else going. But again, if you like playing, go for it.
Yeah, see, the problem for me, and I agree with you, if this is the way you want to play, that's fine. There's no bad thing about this. It's just psychologically, you have to be able to accept those immediate outs.
Right.
And you also have to accept scenarios where, let's say your don't come actually goes up to a 4, and the next roll's another 4.
Mm-hmm, right.
So you've lost $75. And how are you going to get that back with your, $12 6 bet?
Yeah. And then if, let's say that 4 has come up for the second time, you lose that don't come. So you say, okay, now I'll make another don't come for $75. And then that rolls a 7. Right? That's terrible for you. Now, again, here we're giving worst case scenarios here. There could be worst case scenarios for the way that we bet. We understand that, however the dice come out. But that would be pretty rough for this system.
And that's the thing. See, you have to understand the worst case scenario for your system and see if you can live with that psychologically.
Yeah.
For me, I like to make a pass line bet, and then I like to place all the numbers. And if it's immediate 7 out, I lose it all. But I can deal with that because I also know that every once in a while there's going to be a guy that, rolls 12 numbers in a row.
Sure.
And I press them and I make some money. And that's the reason I don't play the don't. People ask, well, why don't you play the don't more? And I don't play the don't because when you win, you more than likely get small wins. Now, you may get more frequent small wins, but when you lose, you can get some pretty big losses on a roll.
Yeah.
And they're hard to make up. So for me, I just like to go the other way. I like to say, well, sure, I'm not going to have a lot of big wins, but every once in a while I'm going to get a big win. And I'll just have a few small losses.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you like to do too is press up bets so that they get real big. During a monster roll, there's nothing quite the same on the don't. Every time you win a don't, all your bets come down. So do you bet? It's not quite the same.
Right. It's not the excitement level for me is basically what it boils down to.
Yeah. All right, next call.
Hey, Mark and Dr. Mike, DT from Chattanooga. I just want to say thank you to you guys for keeping the show going. I know a lot of people really appreciate it. You can tell by the phone calls that come in. I just wanted to do an update right before all this started. I went to a Harris Cherokee at Valley River there in Murphy, North Carolina. And some good news that the dealers were talking to me about was it's supposed to be April 1st. Of course, now I guess it's just going to be whenever they reopen, but they're getting the Spanish 21 table. And I know how you guys talked about how much you enjoyed it and how fun it was. So I'm going to go back and listen to that episode so I can figure out how I'm going to play it whenever they do open it up. Because I've never actually seen a table with Spanish 21. Number two, they were finally getting sports betting set up. So they had the whole area set up. But I went over there and talked to them, and they said that the legislation was slowing it down and that they thought it was going to be ready for March, but then they said it wouldn't be ready until football season. So maybe with the slowdown, they're able to make some better progress on getting that going by the time that sports does get restarted. It'd be nice to have that local. Anyway, just want to say thank you to you guys, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, be sure before you actually sit down at the Spanish 21 table that you go over to the Wizard of Odds page and check out his strategies for the game. Yeah, hopefully North Carolina will get sports betting before the NFL season, if there's an NFL season.
Right. And this morning, I was listening to a sports talk show, and I guess the NFL announced today that they have a system in place to give refunds for missed games.
Oh, okay.
They weren't saying yet that they were canceling anything, but they said in case there are missed games or if there are games played without fans, we have a system in place for teams to refund the money for people who've already bought season tickets and tickets for the season, stuff like that.
Okay, good. Well,
so,
at least they're planning.
Yeah, they're planning. So, I mean, there must be some concern in their minds that they may not have a full season.
Yeah.
And I could see that happening, right? I mean,
sure,
allowing, 70,000 people into a stadium and all the people in the parking lots is probably the very, very last thing we should do as a society until we're sure we can control it.
There's so much money in the NFL. I would think they would go ahead with the games just with no fans, just because TV is still huge. But I wonder what it would be like watching a game where there's nobody in the stands, watching on TV. Right. I don't know.
And they commented on that. The NFL said that they realized that would not be as exciting for the players or the fans.
No.
Because, certain amount of the play is from fans cheering. I mean, teams getting, pumped up, right?
Yeah.
So it would definitely change the games. Well, it's like you said before, how can you start a full season of teams if, say, one area can't even play the games without fans, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's like baseball now. I mean, sure, they could play the games without people in the stadium.
Yeah, and they're talking about even playing all the games in Arizona or Florida,
Right. God, in Arizona, in those
oh my
little
gosh,
tiny stadiums that
in the middle of the
like
summer,
3,000 people.
All right, next up is Mike. The audio is a little rough. I tried to clean it up as best I could, but anyway, just a heads up.
Hello, hi, this is Mike calling from Salt Lake City. Long-time listener, just like you guys, aching to get back out there and start playing. I recently been re-listening to all the episodes in order. I have a delivery job now. On one episode when you talk about dice control, I agree. I don't think dice control really is a thing, but I will say they're throwing the dice that's all drunk and crazy, and I'll just have a feeling not to bet. Maybe it's my gut. I don't know what. And I think that's the thing. As well as your last episode, I was listening about the don't pass line. I feel like I'm the same way as Mark, where I like to play it, but not with my friends. If I'm there with some buddies and they're shooting, I'll play with them the pass line with odds and throw a couple numbers out there. But I think I win more usually playing the don't pass, but I only play by myself. Anyways, hope you guys are doing well, safe in California, and hopefully they open up soon. Maybe I can go down there and go meet you guys. Take care.
All right, thanks, Mike. Yeah, we're talking about the don't pass. and don't come. I won't generally play that if I'm with friends. If I'm at a table and I don't know anybody, then I might do it, but certainly not. I know I have with you in the past at some times, and I say, oh, it's because I got to change the luck at the table because it's so cold. But typically I try to do it when I'm not with friends.
Yeah, and I hate when you do that and then we both lose.
I know, really. Just the dice come up perfectly so that we're both getting creamed.
They come up perfect so that we both lose. We look at each other like, what the hell?
Yeah. And Mike was talking about those gut feeling bets. You know, the thing with, I got a gut feeling. Every once in a while, I get this gut feeling. I'll put money on the 12 and it'll come up. Nah, it's just confirmation bias. You're remembering those times when it hit. And it's like, wow, I've got some kind of power. But if you look at it in the long run, no such thing.
So yesterday, I don't know if you got my text, Mark. I texted you. I was watching a Twilight Zone episode from 1960.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I saw your text.
With William Shatner.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that episode, but him and his wife are on a trip. Their car breaks down. I think they're newlyweds, and their car breaks down in some small town. And they've got 4 or 5 hours while the car is getting repaired. They go into a little diner, and on the table, the napkin holder has this thing in it where you put a penny in it, and it spits out a fortune.
Oh, okay, right.
And there's a little devil-looking guy on the top of the napkin holder. And, he asks it a few questions. And he gets real kind of generic answers, but he becomes obsessed by it. And the wife keeps trying to tell him, no, you're thinking that, like, should we get up and leave? And it says maybe, or, or be careful if you do, or, stuff like that. And he reads into it. And so he's trying to like guide his life on whatever this thing tells him by asking it random questions. And at the end, his wife convinces him that it doesn't have any psychic power. He's just reading into it. Mm-hmm. And they end up leaving. And as they leave, another couple comes in who had been there, I guess, before and were stuck in this town because they couldn't get over the fact that, maybe they shouldn't leave this machine, that it would guide them to something good or keep bad things from happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're stuck in the Twilight Zone, so to speak.
All right.
But it's the perfect example. And the reason I texted you is because William Shatner, I looked up his birthday. He was 28 when he made that, but he looks so young.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And you know what? He was a better actor when he was young.
Well, that's not too hard to believe.
It was actually pretty good acting. I'm like, what happened to him? Nothing against William Shatner. I love William Shatner.
Sure, of course.
But his acting was so much better when he was 28. Anyway, it's the perfect example of, confirmation thinking, where you just read into it. So anyway, that's what happens to us all.
Sure. We're all guilty.
Right?
It's human nature, of course. Yes.
And we all wish we had some kind of psychic power.
Yeah.
Then my answer to Will's question would be, I've never lost. I've never had a losing year. I know exactly what to do.
Don't you have a patient that comes in and says he plays slots every week and he always wins?
And he always wins. Yeah. He still maintains that. Oh, I always win. Sure, I'll go up and down, but I'm always a winner at the end. Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, my God.
All right. Last call from William. We're going to pause between his questions here, too, to answer as we go along.
Hey, Mark and Dr. Mike. This is William from Fort Worth, Texas. Big fan of the show. Y'all the first podcast I've ever listened to. I started, I guess, about a month ago. I started with your most current episode, and then I've worked my way back to episode 148. Then I thought, I've got to get to the origin of this at some point. So I started with number 1, and now I'm through number 89, which is December of 2015. And my wife's not a huge fan of this because I'm always wanting to listen to it in the car. So what I have to do is put in an AirPod, I think that's what they're called now, my off ear from her, so my driver's side ear, so she can't see what's going on. Yet I try to act like I'm engaged in conversation with her, so it's kind of tough. But anyway, kind of a COVID update here. Started playing some golf, usually once a week, just to get out of the house. And we've been reduced to betting. Our gambling now is that we bet if an odd or even numbered golf cart is going to be passing us next at the clubhouse while we're having a cocktail outside because you can't really go in. So that's what we've been reduced to, which is pretty sad. But I'm hoping to get 7 stars for the first time this year. I've always been a Diamond member, Diamond Elite, I guess now. I've got 82,000 tier credits through March, which have kind of been shut down now, but hoping they're going to help us out. And hopefully I can get back in the casino and get to 7 stars for the first time. Because I enjoy the Diamond Lounge, especially at Caesars, just some decent food options now, seems like the last year or two.
Yeah, so depending on when the casino's opened, William, if you already have 82,000 through March, again, you only need 125,000 this year to make 7 stars. So hopefully the casinos will open up in time for you to finish up, but you're more than halfway there, so it should be no problem as long as you're able to play.
Yeah, if you're January and February, and it couldn't have been much in March,
Right.
a couple weeks in March,
Right.
gave you 82, you should have no problem.
Yep.
Even if they opened in July, October, you'd probably make it.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of his wife not being a fan.
Does she just not like listening to us in the car, or she just doesn't like listening to us at all? Because I think the latter is probably more likely.
Yeah, well, maybe she just doesn't like listening to gambling talk. Maybe that's part of it, too.
Nah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe in the car she'd like some nice music or something.
Honey, I've got 82,000 tier credits. Yeah, that's great.
Now, I get a kick out of him putting the earpod in his ear and listening to us and still trying to carry a conversation on with his wife.
In the ear that she can't see.
My father-in-law, I don't know if you remember this, Mark, my father-in-law, on Sunday during football season, he would go to church, and if the Vikings were playing, an early game, he'd take his radio, put it in his pocket, and put the earphone in his ear and listen. And my mother-in-law one time yelled at him about that, and he said, "Look, would you rather have me listening to football and being here, or just being home watching the game?" Those were her choices. So she conceded to the fact that, all right, well, he can one ear on the minister and one ear on the football
Lesser
game.
of two evils.
Right, exactly.
Couple of questions. Dr. Mike, do you always keep putting your hardways back up? I mean, if you have 5 soft 8s that come out with a shooter, are you putting that back up every single time? Sounds like maybe you are. I know you're crazy, but man, that's expensive.
Yes, every single time. I put them back every single time. How many years did I go, Mark, and I never bet hardways?
No, I know. And then you had a couple of wins, unfortunately for you, and now it's your life.
Yeah, and then I thought, this is kind of fun. I really enjoy these hardways. So, yeah, I put them back. Now, if I parlay them and they get kind of big, I usually make a big enough bet to cover it if they come up easy.
So, in other words, you've either got a big place bet on the number, or maybe you've hopped the number soft just so you can replace the hard way.
Right. Usually during the roll, I have a big place bet. And if it's on the come out roll, I usually hop it soft so that if it comes up soft, I at least want enough money to put it back.
Yep.
So I know it's, hedging, and that can always get you in trouble, but yeah, I love to do it.
So William,
there's no other explanation.
So William, just to be clear, if he had a $10 hard 8 and the hard 8 hit and he parlayed it to $100 and then an 8 comes up easy, yes, he will replace that $100 hard 8.
Yeah, I'll have 300 out there. I'll replace the 300. I'll just make sure that I have a $350 bet on the 8, place bet on the 8.
That's Dr. Mike.
Another question. You guys ever shoot with your offhand throwing the dice? I'm guessing as much as y'all played that you probably have done that.
I think I have. Maybe if I'm standing stick right, kind of right by the stick
right.
man. Yeah, I'm sure I have, but
then
I usually
use your
don't.
left
But
hand and roll backwards.
You have too, right?
Oh yeah, if you're stick right, use your left hand and roll backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it with your right too, but you can also pick them up with your left and roll backwards.
Yeah.
It's probably the only thing I can do with both hands.
If there's anything else, please don't let us know. All right.
Oh, one other thing, or actually 2 more things. One, will you expand on the reward credit for free play exchange? I know you mentioned that. I didn't know that existed. So my question is, so when I come out to Vegas, I'll email or call my host, say, hey, we're coming, will you set us up here? And he'll just respond, okay, done, I'll send you the confirmation. So does that affect my reward? Is he taking reward credits off for those rooms? I guess is my question. So if I go into Caesars when we're coming next and immediately go up to the cage, or I guess the reward credit desk, and say I want to exchange these and take away all my reward points for free play, at the end of that trip, let's just assume I've accumulated no new points, which is ridiculous, but would I have to pay for my room at that point? So is my host stealing some of my reward points to pay for those rooms? Hopefully that makes sense. But how does that work? Because I don't want to mess up my free room status.
So no, typically reward credits are not used to pay for comped rooms. The room really is comped. they won't use your reward credits to pay for that. Now, in some other things like food, we have heard stories of people being at the table and asking the pit, hey, can I get a free buffet? And they'll say, oh, yeah, no problem. And they'll fill out a slip. And as it turns out, it's just deducted from your reward credits. So that kind of thing can happen, but typically not when it comes to comped rooms.
I have heard of rooms, let's say you don't get a comped room, so you just make a reservation. You go, at the end of your stay, you go up to the host and say, hey, I was wondering, can I get these rooms comped? And I have heard of instances where they say, oh, well, let's just see, and they use your reward credits to pay for your room.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard of that. But if they, ahead of time, before, when you're first making your reservation, they tell you it's comped, then it almost always is comped. I mean, it's a free room.
Yeah, we've never had reward credits used for rooms that were comped for us up front. And just as a reminder, too, you can cash in your reward credits for free play. Right now, the ratio is 2-to-1, meaning if you want $100 in free play, you've got to use $200 worth of reward credits. That's regardless of your tier level. Now, every once in a while, a local casino may have some deal where it's better than 2-to-1. In fact, last year at Harrah's Southern California, there was 1 month, for 1 month only, they were doing 1-to-1. And we took advantage of that very quickly. But at least for right now, it's 2-to-1.
Right. When it was 1-to-1, we cashed in as much as they would allow us to.
Yeah, which was, I think, $500 a day.
$500 a day, correct. We took advantage of that because that's great. But at 2-to-1, I'd almost rather save them for other stuff.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
Y'all mentioned roulette and buying in and then picking your color. I played a lot of roulette, and very rarely have they let me pick the color I want. Actually, usually they if I walk up and say, put 300 on the table, want to play nickels, can I have yellow, please? And usually they kind of shake their head like, if you hadn't asked, I may have given you yellow, but basically they don't like for you to ask. And I'm sure it's because of how y'all mentioned many, many episodes ago about how somebody was buying in for, say, $1 chips, sticking a few of them in their pocket and then coming back a few days later and then buying in and they want quarter chips. And so all of a sudden their chip value has increased. So I'm guessing that's why. But it's happened sometimes where they'll give me my color, but usually they don't. But sometimes they'll let you pick a few colors you don't want and kind of narrow it down. But I'm sure every place is different.
Yeah, so just to remind people how roulette chips work, they're different from chips at other table games. When you go up to a roulette table, you buy in for, say, $100, and you say, okay, I want $5 chips. And what they'll do is they'll take a certain colored chip, usually randomly, let's say, yellow in this case, and they'll give you 20 yellow chips, and the dealer will use a little marker to indicate that yellow chips are worth $5 a piece. And you're the only player at the table that's going to use yellow chips. And the reason they do that is because there's so many chips going on at the roulette table, it would be impossible to distinguish different players' bets if they didn't have different colored chips. If they're just a bunch of red $5 chips out there, well, whose bet is this? Whose bet is this? So each player on the table gets different colored chips. And then when they're done with a session, they give these chips back to the dealer, and the dealer then gives them regular casino chips, table game casino chips. Now, what he's talking about, this scam that we heard about a few years ago, where people would go up and cash in for, say, $20 and say, give me $1 chips. So again, in this example, the dealer would give them 20 yellow chips and put down a marker indicating that those were worth $1 each. During the course of the game, the player would pocket a few of these chips and leave the table. And then when he came back later, maybe several days later, he would cash in for, say, $1,000 and say, okay, I want all my chips to be worth $25. And if the dealer gives him yellow chips, now he can slip some of these yellow chips that were only worth $1 before into this stack, and now they're worth $25, and that's a way of cheating. So that's what William is saying, is maybe that's why they won't give you the specific colored chip that you've asked for, because maybe that's a scam that you're going to run. Now, again, we talked about this scam. It's really up to the dealer to make sure that he or she gets all of those chips back from a player, that all the yellow chips are accounted for before the player leaves the table.
Right, and that should not be hard to do, because they stack them up and they know how many stacks of yellow they had and how high they are. So when a player cashes out, it's dealer's responsibility to say, hey, wait a minute, there's 2 yellow chips missing. Where are they?
Exactly right. And it's even easier now that they have these automatic chip sorters. They just drag into this big hole and then the machine actually separates them by color.
Right. And so, it's pretty hard to run that scam. And I'm sure if you did leave the table and they were a couple, say, yellow chips short, I'm sure they're watching for you to come back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I'll be honest with you, William, we just don't play roulette enough, and we've never asked for a specific color. So we don't have any experience in that. But yeah, if you see them not accommodating you in that way, that might be one of the reasons at least.
Or 2 other things. One, you always talk about the infamous last morning session in Vegas before you fly home. So I was at a conference in Paris, Las Vegas, and had about $1,000 left. And so I don't even like blackjack, but I walked down there and said, okay, I'm going to play $100 blackjack. I don't hardly ever play blackjack. I know the rules. I play it right. It bores me. Anyway, so there was nobody at the table. Sit down with the dealer, $1,000, play $100 a hand. I played 7 hands, lost $1,000, doubled down 3 times, lost every single time. As you can imagine, with nobody else at the table, I'm not sure that took over about a minute and a half. Nothing like that feeling, leaving, jumping in a cab and heading to the airport. But anyway, at least I got a story out of it.
Yep, never play that final morning. You are guaranteed to lose, and it's pretty likely you'll lose terribly.
What's funny is if you're ahead for the trip, you play the final morning, go home a loser. If you're down for the trip, you play the final morning and you go home a bigger loser. So the moral of that story is on Saturday night when you go to bed, you're done. That's it. You have finished your gambling until Monday morning.
And lastly, a little cautionary marker tale. I've gotten markers for probably 10 years or so, and I had one at the Rio that I'd stayed there a couple times. Always paid them back promptly, great history, payment history. So anyway, a couple years later, my wife and I were staying at Caesars, ran out of money, and so I cabbed it over to Rio, got my $4,000, I think it was, marker, and then came back and met her and paid that marker back as soon as I got home, wrote them a check. And if you don't, they'll draw it out of your bank account 30 days later, and they don't mind. It's fine. And then the next time I went back to Rio, I tried to get a marker again. They're like, no, you misused the last marker. I was like, well, I said, I've always paid it back promptly, of great history. They're like, yeah, but you didn't use it here. So what I had done was I had gotten the money there, went to Caesars and probably Cromwell and played. And they said, those aren't short-term loans. Those are for you to go gamble. They're not for you to just do whatever you want with. They're for you to gamble on this property. So I didn't know that. So just educate other listeners who may not know that. But anyway, that's it. Sorry to take up so much time. Bye.
Yeah, Mike, you had a similar problem to this, didn't you?
Yeah, kind of similar. When I get a marker at a casino, I always play at that casino.
Sure.
I've never gotten a marker, made one bet and walked out. But it was something where I got a marker at Caesars for, let's say, $2,000. And I was down $800 or $900. And then it's like, oh, let's go over to Planet Hollywood or something. And so I went over there.
Playing with the 1,200 that you still had.
Yeah, playing with the 1,200 I still had.
Uh-huh.
And, they had mentioned something like, well, you didn't pay this one back first.
Yeah.
And I guess what they wanted is, well, you only lost 800. Why not pay us this back and then get another marker over there?
Yeah. So
it can be kind of tricky. And that wasn't intentional.
No.
Me, intentionally doing that. It's like you come up and you say, hey, I want to go over to Planet Hollywood. Okay, let's go to Planet Hollywood. And you just leave.
Right. You don't want to have to pay the marker off at the current place, or at least as much as you can, and then go get a marker at the next place. Why not just take the cash with you? Yeah, I understand. But that is something that's frowned upon.
Right. They would actually prefer, I took that 1,200 up, paid off 1,200 of my 2,000 marker, and only owed them 800. And then I could go to Planet Hollywood and get another marker for 2,000.
Yeah. Anyway, so good advice, something to be careful about. Thanks for all those questions, William. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. We want to thank some people for some PayPal donations. First of all, recurring donations from Robin at NE Time Gambling, from James, and from Kurt. Thanks very much for those recurring donations. And a donation from our friend Melanie. Thanks for keeping me laughing through lockdown. You two are fabulous. I can't disagree with that, Mike. I think you're fabulous.
You too, Mark. I was laughing because Melanie sent you an email and said she'd like a picture of my toes.
Yeah, she wants to see your toes because when we were playing in the poker tournament this last week, you had mentioned that your daughters painted your toenails.
Yeah. Well, one player mentioned that his hair was in a bun.
Right, because he hasn't been able to get haircuts, yeah.
Right, and his daughter was playing with it, and she gave him a man bun. And I said, yeah, I know how you feel because a couple of nights earlier, my daughters who were painting their toenails said, oh, Dad, we're going to paint your nails. And after I put up a little bit of a fight, they fussed about it. And I said, oh, go ahead. So they painted my toenails.
Nice.
The sad thing is so a couple of days after that, I'm doing some work in our yard and I realized we have one of those tankless water heaters. It needed servicing, which I've always done myself. But it's about 12 years old, and some of the parts were getting a little broken down. So I said, you know what? This time I'm going to call a guy and have him service it and just check everything, make sure I don't want something to break and we'll be without hot water. So I called the guy, and oh, yeah, I'll be out tomorrow. So he came out to do the servicing. And without even thinking, I walked outside without shoes. And I mean, just shorts and a T-shirt. And the whole time, I stood there and I just chatted with this young guy, not even paying attention. I come in the house and, my wife points out, you didn't have shoes on and my toenails are bright pink. And I'm thinking the guy's probably like, what the?
No, he's thinking to each his own. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. Being an older person, I felt kind of weird afterwards.
Being an older person, yeah.
And I'm not saying that I don't have fantastic looking toes.
Yeah, well, I'll send Melanie a picture, but don't send me one.
Yeah, fine.
Hey, be sure to check out our TV listings showing all the gambling-related shows coming up within the next 2 weeks at youcanbetonthat.com/TV-listings and our list of gambling-related movies at youcanbetonthat.com/movies. We'd love to hear from you. Call our voicemail hotline at 951-292-4377. That's 9512-WAGERS.
9512-WAGERS.
Or you can email us at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at YouCanBetOnThat and on Facebook at facebook.com/YouCanBetOnThat. Finally, please go to your favorite podcast app and write a review on us. We love getting your feedback. Got anything else for us, Dr. Mike?
Yeah, there's not much going on, Mark.
No.
We don't have any sports to watch. No gambling.
Yeah.
Phil, our good friend Phil from Harrah's Resort, Southern California, called me the other day just to check up, see how we were doing. And he asked how much money you and I won on the NFL draft.
Oh, yeah. We didn't bet on that at all.
I was laughing. Yeah. I was like, no, we didn't bet at all. I should have told him, well, I really expected Tampa Bay in the third round to take, blah, blah, blah. And they didn't, so we lost $500.
You should have told him that.
I should have told him that. And I thought, nah, I can't believe people bet on that.
Well, I mean, there's nothing else to bet on. And actually, there are probably some pretty good deals if you actually search for them. I just don't follow it closely enough.
No, I mean, we follow football, but drafting, who knows who's going to draft who. I see the Chargers got a new quarterback, so
I'm not sure what team you're talking about. Yeah, you really should have told Phil you lost $500 because think about it. Gamblers love hearing stories about other gamblers losing. Phil would have been thinking, all right, good. I'm a better gambler than he is.
Right, I'm a better gambler than those two boneheads. He was sure we bet on it, but no, I can't wait to get back. It's really starting to get to me, Mark.
Yeah, me too. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right, take care.
Oh, sweet mother, I love you, Dr. Mike.